St. Lucia Labour Party views the imposition of visa facilities on Venezuelan nationals and the simultaneous granting of visa-free access to Chinese nationals with suspicion, as this scenario presents a disturbing dichotomy. First, the Prime Minister's rationale for imposing visa facilities on Venezuelan nationals is seriously flawed. Mr. Chasney argues that it was for security reasons. He insinuated that the 60 homicides in 2017, as well as the amount of guns coming into St. Lucia, had to do with the mass movement of the said nationals towards the Caribbean. The fact is, we do not have a problem with Venezuelan nationals at our ports of entry. Hence, the imposition of visa facilities on Venezuelan nationals has nothing to do with the security interests of St. Lucia and St. Lucians. Therefore, the Prime Minister needs to clarify this allegation, as he seems clueless on issues of national security. It was this seeming deplorable ignorance which led him to further state that no Coast Guard boats were operational when he came into office in 2011. The truth is, all except 2 boats were operational. The Defender was operational, the 2 Safe boats were operational, the 2 Brunswick boats needed a pontoon change. It has the same old engines, they were operational. Only PO4 and PO6 were not operational at the time and remains that way up to today. Consequently, the opposition dismisses Mr. Alan Chasney's comments on the aforementioned national security issues as deplorable ignorance. The opposition states categorically that upon our resumption of office, we shall reinstate the visa-free access facility to Venezuelan nationals. Further, we condemn in the strongest possible language any attempts to assassinate a democratically elected leader in our hemisphere or in any other part of the world. Second, Mr. Chasney's stated rationale for granting visa-free access to Chinese nationals was that China is now a major global player and is the second largest economy in the world. This was the prevailing scenario under the former SLP administration, and visa-free access was not granted on that basis. In fact, visa-free access is not granted to a country on the basis of GDP per capita, the size of its economy, or how affluent its citizens are. While visa-free access is not always based on reciprocity, visa-free travel to countries depend on 2 main factors. One, foreign relationships and policies between the countries based on trade, culture, partnerships, etc. So you might have privileged status or the principle of reciprocity. 2, historical factors and trends about the pattern of migration between the 2 countries. We do not share this with China. While the opposition readily appreciates that there is no mystery to the granting of visa-free access to foreign nationals, the abrupt and unilateral granting of the visa-free access facility for Chinese nationals has cast a shadow of doubt and cynicism on the true intentions of the government. For example, the reckless handling and sabotage of our healthcare sector by Mr. Alan Chasney and his spineless cabinet are symptomatic of their commitment to the neoliberal market model. The health needs and security interests of St. Lucians and St. Lucia are of no consequence to them, as the overriding objective of the neoliberal market model is to serve the interests of property owners and shareholders. And according to its belief, it views regulation, trade unions, taxation, public ownership, etc. as mere impediments which are unjustified and should be removed. Its ideology is that shareholder value must be maximized, that labor markets should be flexible, and that capital should be free to invest or disinvest in industries and countries at will. The trend is away from certainty of tenure to uncertainty. The effect is to transfer all risk from employers to employees. It is being done in the ownership interest of companies and shareholders. So Chinese nationals could replace St. Lucian workers according to that model if it serves to minimize labor costs and maximize profits for property owners and shareholders. The real victims are going to be the workers who will lose not only their jobs, but their pensions as well. In Mr. Chasney's quest to privatize the public service, a significant percentage of St. Lucian nurses are at risk of being left destitute after a lifetime of service to the country. Mr. Alan Chasney is unenthusiastic about protecting workers' rights in St. Lucia. Another example is the controversial signing of the DSH deal, which is pregnant with controversial clauses that are in the interest of foreigners and to the detriment of St. Lucia. DSH is an ideologically driven, vicious corporate model of how corporate power subverts the political process in our country. The real victims are our fellow St. Lucians, who will not be able to get work, as Mr. Chasney is more interested in allowing foreign nationals unbridled access to the labor market in St. Lucia. At no other time has St. Lucian workers been more exposed to those harsh realities in the labor market. The St. Lucia Labour Party is vehemently opposed to those types of business models and arrangements. Consequently, the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party, being born out of organized labor, is calling upon our trade unions to further strengthen themselves on the basis of the threats and opportunities that exist. For as long as this UWP government is in power, it would be unduly optimistic to expect any relief in the form of legislation that decisively tilts bargaining power back to workers. In fact, the Alan Chasney government is more inclined to pass anti-union legislation. Therefore, only a healthy system of labor relations could stem the tide of unbridled neoliberal market models in St. Lucia. Finally, the opposition notes that in the current era of globalization and the emergence of significant new powers such as China, St. Lucia must seek to determine appropriate policy options as it navigates this complex and fluid world situation, and should pursue strategic alignments with other nations so as to attract foreign capital and related assistance as a means of re-energizing and modernizing our economy. I thank you.